What do you need to see? What do you want to see most? What's most interesting to you as we start another training camp with the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, I think a lot of the focus and attention, rightfully so, has been with the acquisition of AJ Brown and what the offense can do. I'm looking over at the defense because it's been a while, in my opinion, it's been a while since we've seen like a true depth at linebacker. It's been a while since we've seen the defensive line have a really good performance over a season. I mean, 29 sacks last year, second to last in the league, and that doesn't do what they do.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to seeing how that unit does, how it gels. I mean, they're probably going to hide this type of stuff they want to do in front of us, at least anyway. This type of stuff they want to do beginning week 1, week 2. But I just want to see how well all three layers of that defense does for the upcoming season and seeing what they could possibly do.
McMullen and McDonald here with Young Birds 365. We bring in another of our Irish brothers, Chris Franklin, good enough to join us here on Birds 365. Although, as you can see, he tans much superior to John McMullen and or Jody McDonald. So we got to give you the props. Hey, you must have had a damn good summer with that tan, Franklin.
Oh, I had a great time. We just went around to the beach and just had some fun. So it's always fun talking to my Irish brothers.
A little bit of a brogue on you, huh? And I give you A for effort. Don't know if I can give you A for execution, but I give you A for effort. You ready to hang out with McMullen for these next 6 months? Or
Yeah, he's gonna love it. He's gonna love it.
I know it's hard to believe, but I actually missed it. I missed the camaraderie, even sitting around the random conversations that goes on, and I actually missed the other beat writers. I'm not ashamed to say that. It's a lot. It's a lot of fun in there. There's some interesting moments happen there.
There is great shame in saying that. Might not be.
I'm still kind of a new guy, so yeah. Maybe I'm not in there yet, and I haven't fully marinated yet. But yeah,
too much marination, I would argue. But no. Merry Christmas Eve, shall we say it that, as training camp technically starts today, but really doesn't start till tomorrow. When you get on the field with some of the players, they're not going to be able to have pads on for another week or so. But what are you most looking forward to? And I'll take the quarterback off the table because obviously we're all interested to see Jalen Hurts. But what do you need to see? What do you want to see most? What's most interesting to you as we start another training camp with the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, I think a lot of the focus and attention, rightfully so, has been with the acquisition of AJ Brown and what the offense can do. I'm looking over at the defense because it's been a while, in my opinion, it's been a while since we've seen like a true depth at linebacker. It's been a while since we've seen the defensive line have a really good performance over a season. I mean, 29 sacks last year, second to last in the league, and that doesn't do what they do.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to seeing how that unit does, how it gels. I mean, they're probably going to hide this type of stuff they want to do in front of us, at least anyway. This type of stuff they want to do beginning week 1, week 2. But I just want to see how well all three layers of that defense does for the upcoming season and seeing what they could possibly do.
All right, I want to ask you about a specific player, and I think we've talked about him with you before, but I want to bear down even more so. And that's Miles Sanders. Everyone has acknowledged, including those who will be making the decisions, although I don't know if Shane Steichen, have you guys talked to Steichen all off season? He was made available at least once during the OTA. But was that before or after Nick came out and said, and Shane will be calling the plays again this year?
Shane said it first, and that's
what
we're like, whoa, yeah. Whoa, all right, Shane. All right, Mr. Big Man, you're calling the plays.
he will be doing so, and it's we all know a team effort, but he's the guy who's going to actually make the call on the spot in the moment. Everyone believes the Eagles are going to run the ball less this year than they did last year. They didn't bring in AJ Brown to just be a complimentary receiver and fill in the role that Jalen Reagor had last year. No, he's going to be better. He's going to get the ball more often. The Eagles are going to throw it more often. Last year, Miles Sanders rushed 5.5 yards per, which was one of the better average per carries in the National Football League. So you're not going to judge Miles Sanders this year by how many overall yards he puts up because they're going to run it less. You can't really expect him to be better than 5.5. That's one of the best in the league. How can Miles Sanders show up and show out this year?
I think there's this, he's a very talented guy. 1,250-yard backs this monster year. Those guys don't exist anymore. And that's my perspective. Like, Nick Sirianni by now. We've seen him. He's going to play 2 running backs. And it's going to start out to be Miles and Kenny Gainwell. And then, who knows what happens from there. Is that how you see the backfield kind of shaking out?
I think so. And I wonder, hopefully, I think if I'm Miles Sanders, especially in the middle of contract year, you hope Boston Scott doesn't come in there and try to vulture some of those rushing touchdowns. Because when you look how well that Kenny Gainwell and that Scott did down there, I think they had combined something like 12 red zone touchdowns while down there behind that line. And mainly because what they did was just they went north-south and didn't try to dance around back there. So I really think it's going to be those two when it comes to the most of the thing. But I really believe that Miles Sanders could average that many yards as what he did beforehand. I think he's primed basically because everybody's going to worry about trying to stop those receivers. I think there's going to be some room to run in there. And if he's just, and the one thing that I know, I know people talk about his vision, his cutbacks and everything else, but if he basically gets just a little bit better at that, I think he's primed to have a big season, especially he's got a lot to prove too, because he's trying to get paid.
Chris, one of the positions that I would be intrigued to watch if I was on the grass with you guys starting tomorrow is TE2, tight end 2. We know Dallas Scott is going to be the starter. He's going to very infrequently come off the field. He's going to be out there for almost every single snap. But the Eagles do like to play some 12 possession, and there is always the possibility of injury. Of course, your fingers, it doesn't happen with Goddard this year. He's there for all 17 games. But if he does go down, somebody's got to start at tight end for the Eagles. How do you think they're going to determine who that is with the scaled back practices that they have with everybody in the league being protective of their players? They do have 3 preseason games, and somebody's got to play tight end, and those joint practices, all important joint practices against the Browns and the Dolphins. How is the quote unquote depth chart of the tight end going to be ferreted out?
I think it's going to be a lot of those wonderful blocking drills against the pads, and I think those team drills are going to be that. And you don't really tell as much. I mean, the only time you really do is like a full 11 on 11, and you only get a limited amount of time with that. And they're going to probably look back on tape of that. Boy, the way it's shaping out right now, it's tough to find who's going to. I mean, you're looking right now potentially Grant Calcaterra, 7th round draft pick, potentially being your tight end number 2. I mean, he can run some good routes, but the problem, I think this team needs a true blocking tight end, especially if you're going to have Goddard. You want Goddard out in routes, and you need some protection for him. You're going to need a guy to stay in there during certain times. And Richard Rodgers again, it's not anything. And Tyree Jackson he's still coming from that ACL. So you're looking at possibly, if say down the goal line, you're looking at possibly Grant Calcaterra with Dallas Goedert and Jack Stoll potentially right now is if you want to be at the goal line, which. As of right now, looking to see right now, it doesn't strike a lot of fear in my besides Goddard, but there's many ways they have to be forced to use that.
Yeah, at that point, if you want to go jumbo, why not, put the extra offensive tackle in there and let them play the tight end? I think the Eagles might go that route, but we'll see. They have some option because of the depth. I do want to, because Jody brings that up, Chris did sort of his training camp preview at NJ.com, examining the Eagles' upcoming season from A to Z. So, first of all, tip of the cap, if I had one, to getting all the letters in there. I like the stretch, and Jody started it with G, H, I, and J. And G for Goddard's backup, which Jody just talked about. To me, that's a glaring sort of issue that the Eagles have to solve, and they brought in 3 tight ends yesterday to work out, so we might see some new names as well. H was for Anthony Harris, I was for Isaac Seumalo, and J was obvious for Jalen Hurts. But we'll start with safety. 3-man rotation, or do the Eagles want 2 of those 3 to seize that position?
I think they want 2. They want to find out their main 2. I think they're 2 of the things. And right now, it looks like it's going to stay chalk. I mean, I think Marcus Epps is the better free safety than Anthony Harris, and we know Tart's more strong safety. So I think as of right now, like you have Epps at that spot, and then for me, potentially it comes down to the 2-man job between Harris and Tart. And right now, I think it's hard to believe, but Anthony Harris, I think for what the Eagles want to do, I think he's better, more equipped to play that strong. But then I think Tart still gets a lot of run, especially like say they play a big nickel. And they have a team that still likes to run, but they still like to throw out, like say, really good 11 personnel. So I think that's another matchup to watch. I think it's more Anthony Harris versus Jaquiski Tart with Epps, surprisingly, out of all people, being the starting free safety. But
Ronnie Lott, baby.
Oh God, I think he'll play good enough that people are like, all right, cool, yeah, he just start. But I think it was pretty telling that we kept hearing about Marcus Williams, Tyrann Mathieu. If the team still kept looking at that, there's questions.
All right, will LaRaven Clark showing up in these practices?
That's why this is the show for the hardcore Eagles fan.
Yeah, it is.
Jody gets down to LaRaven Clark.
Down to LaRaven Clark, and you know where the question is going. If he shows you just enough that you can pump up your confidence level, that he can be the backup at left tackle, pretty important position on the line, it would free up the possibility to trade Mr. Dillard, who John and I have been going back and forth on since last year when John said, that Dillard's actually listed number 1 on the depth chart ahead of Mailata.
Took the first rep.
He surely did, and he didn't take many thereafter, and he won't be taking that many going forward.
Till he got hurt. They were rotating the whole time. People forget about that.
Exactly.
It was about 14, 15 days. They were rotating the whole time.
But
Chris can back me up.
Yeah,
the cream rose to the top, and the cream was Jordan Mailata. But Andre Dillard's still here. Hasn't been moved. He is their best backup left tackle as of right now. Does LaRaven Clark have to actually show you something for Howie Roseman to put Dillard on the open market and potentially trade him if another team has a massive injury in preseason?
I think both of them are going to stay on this roster, unless I'll put the caveat: unless there's a contender that suffers a major injury to their left tackle, or then all of a sudden becomes, well, look what we got here. 4th round pick, 3rd round pick's not looking so bad now for Andre Dillard. I think they like LaRaven Clark just because he can play both tackles, and also he started taking some reps at guard too. And you know how much Jeff Stoutland and the rest of his team love that positional flexibility, having them play inside, like everything else. Basically, he can play everything on almost everything except for center. So I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think he has to show enough. I think if you start to worry if like Coyote or Seeker or something like that starts to pop up, and the next thing you know, it's like, wow, because he was a former tackle, like, wow, maybe we move him out, and then Dillard just looks awful when they try to keep that as quiet as possible, and they try to move him for whatever they can. But I think you're looking at both of them remaining on here, barring an injury elsewhere.
All right, we'll shift it to an even bigger potential trade candidate from my perspective, and that's Jalen Reagor. So I'll give you 3 options, Chris. Jalen Reagor is on the field September 11th in Detroit. Jalen Reagor is cut, or Jalen Reagor is traded. What is the most likely to happen? What is the least likely to happen?
The most likely to happen is that we'll see Jalen Reagor back, and there'll be a bobble on the first punt, and everybody will go, "Oh, see, we told you. Here we go again." and the least likely to happen, I think, is the cut. I think it's going to be tough to trade. I think everybody. Well, I think there's a few teams that like him still. They still think that he has potential, and I think there's more smoke with that Chuck Clark deal, but obviously no, it hasn't been done. When you look at the way that Reagor, as a 5th wide receiver, which you shouldn't be saying about your 1st-round draft pick a couple of years ago, you could do worse. But then also when you look at that cap hit they'll have to incur if they just outright release him, he's coming back. And I think I wouldn't mind seeing him in 5 wides, and that's putting a stretch and I can see right now he's going to tantalize everybody. He's going to show.
Oh, he is. That's the problem, Chris. At training camp, other than A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith, I'm saying it right here. I put it on Twitter yesterday. Jalen Reagor's going to look like the best receiver the Eagles have outside of those two guys because he's got more talent than everybody else. And he's going to make a one-handed catch. There's no pressure. Remember the catch he made last year in camp, which was unbelievable. He's going to show up in camp. How does that affect things? Does that make him more valuable? Does that make the Eagles buy into it? Because I also look at it from a slot perspective when we talk about, okay, he's going to be the slot receiver. Now, Devontae can do it. Maybe you prefer to have him outside. Quez Watkins isn't a slot receiver. He's an outside guy. He's a deep threat. Zach Pascal, okay, he's a blocker, but he's not going to scare anybody from the slot. Are the Eagles going to buy into Jalen Reagor's going to be their best slot receiver?
No.
Camp?
No, I really don't. I don't think so. I don't think they'll buy into. I think they'll buy into. Hey, you know what? Next year, I think they'll really contemplate next year. Think like, okay, he's starting to run his routes a little bit better when there's no pressure, and hey, he's making these acrobatic catches. I think they'll buy into that and say, all right, cool, we'll see it out with him and potentially go from there because, like we said, the return game, so many questions about that. But I think overall, when you look at, I think the biggest thing is because there is no pressure on him, he's going to do well, and I still wouldn't put him out. I still wouldn't put him on the field even more than what you have to do. Just maybe I say if I had to throw a number, maybe 10 snaps on offense a game, maybe at best. Oof. But even
doesn't that look worse for Howie Roseman? We always talk about the ego of GMs, and it's real. They don't want to move on for first round picks. But isn't it worse if you're just keeping a guy on the roster because you don't want to be embarrassed by cutting him and he's out there for 5-10 snaps? Doesn't that make it look worse for you as a GM than just saying, all right, raise my hand. I got this one wrong. Let's move on. Let's turn the page. Why don't more GMs see it that way?
Because I still think they hold out. I think I look at them like a teacher looks out as that student who shows potential, and and for them, Jalen Reagor's that student shows potential. Like I don't want to give up on him because I'm afraid if he goes somewhere else, it'll blow up. I think it's more one of those things. Because right now, if you put him on the Packers, let's say, and you have Aaron Rodgers, all of a sudden he blows up. And that's where everybody come back. Why'd you trade him? You could have had this guy. You didn't do what have you and all stuff. So I think it's one thing they're going to try every chance.
That's how much stinking respect I have for Aaron Rodgers. I had no doubt that Jalen Reagor would blow up in Green Bay. No doubt.
Yeah. Maybe that could happen yet. Do want to, and I apologize, I don't have the individual's name in front of me. Somebody mentioned it's on the stream. I thought it was a pretty good point. I want to run it by you, Chris Franklin. Once the Eagles start running whatever drills they are, 7-on-7, 11-on-11, whatever they do, they got two pretty damn good corners. And we know Slay is Slay, but we're going to get our first look in Green. James Bradbury, I thought he was an excellent addition during the offseason. As soon as the Giants released him, I started screaming from high heck. Eagles need to sign this guy. Eagles need to sign this guy. And Howie, good job out of you. He got him signed and he's here. And Bradbury's trying to make his name, cut his bones here in Philadelphia. But the Eagles have a quarterback that they want to see take steps forward during this preseason. How hard are the cornerbacks going to work at making Jalen Hurts look bad in whatever practices they have? Because, they got to kind of take care of their own turf. They can't be concerned that Franklin and McMullen and BLG and all these guys are on the sidelines going, Hurts got picked off again. Hurts got picked off again. The Eagles got two pretty good corners. Hurts might not go 7 of 9 in passing drills. How much will you be boring down on the job that the cover corners do against the Eagles wide receivers and their quarterback in all these practice sessions?
Oh, that's going to be fun. I can't wait I actually can't wait to watch that because to see the releases seeing Slay versus, we already know the rivalry Slay and Smith have between each other, but seeing Bradbury and AJ Brown on side, or even Slay versus AJ Brown and Smith versus Bradbury, and we saw what happened last year when Bradbury went against Smith. I think there may be a few more days where, especially early on, because it seems defense always has the edge on offense, where it looks like, well, this offense can't do anything right, and then I know right now it's going to, oh well, the offense looks bad, I think, and then they'll finally go that one. So I think they won't let up, because I think in the end it's going to help everybody get better.
If that was your question, Jody, Slay going easy on Jalen Hurts, man.
Okay,
he's going to talk to him too. He's going to let him know too.
But, for anyone who's been to an Eagles practice at NovaCare, they have 3 fields, and occasionally they're on the field closest to Patterson Avenue. And I remember they were doing drills, and I don't know if you were there for that play, but Slay just baited Jalen Hurts, and you could see it. I was 5 feet away from it, and he just baited him. And sure enough, he stepped in front and picked it off, and Slay was happy. No, that's how he's trying to make the quarterback better, by making things difficult for him. And that's a good thing, by the way. And James Bradbury, I assume, is going to be that way as well. But let's talk about Jalen. We got to get to it, Chris. We only got a few minutes left with you. Mike Sando, I'm sure you saw The Athletic put together his annual quarterback survey. He talks to executive coaches around the league. Jalen ended up tier 3, which I think is correct. Number 20 overall, tied with Carson Wentz, which was weird, but number 20 overall. Too harsh? Is it right where he belongs? What do you think?
I think it's around 17, 16. I thought Matt Ryan was ranked too high, personally. I think his better years have passed him by, but I think tier 3 it's correct to have him in tier 3 right now. He hasn't consistently shown that he can make some of these throws. I mean, he's gotten better. You've seen flashes of it, and the athletic ability, you can't knock the athletic ability when it comes to extending plays and just design run plays as well too. I think if he if he begins to show that he can understand some of the coverages that have been thrown to him and beat some of those zones, because they're going to try, basically the Tampa Bay Buccaneers laid the blueprint how to beat them pretty much, and it's up to Jalen now to say, okay, this is how you play me. This is how I'm going to basically to adjust to it. So I think right now, especially still young, he's got skills and got the tools to be better. Right now, tier 3 is pretty fair for him.
All right, see, last one for me. Last year was Nick Sirianni's maiden voyage as a head coach in the NFL, and had a pretty damn good ride by going above 500 and making the playoffs. Yeah, they did play the Bucs that game. We haven't forgotten, but try to put it off to the side as of right now. The best of the best learn from their experiences and look to improve and make changes where necessary. Within the first week, 2 weeks, what change do you think you'll see in Nick Sirianni? Will he blatantly open up and admit to you guys, here's something pretty big that I'm doing different? Or is it something that you guys are going to have to pick up on? If he doesn't change, then that's not good, because I think everybody's got to change from year to year. Belichick changes from year to year to year to year to year. What do you think will be the thing that you guys will notice that Nick Sirianni's doing a little bit different here in year number 2?
I think we'll see more of the CEO, Nick Sirianni, because it looked like last year he surveyed all the positions, but like he leaned a little bit more on the offensive side. He was jumping in when it comes to the route details, how the guys were running. I think this year, especially with handing the play calling off to Shane, I think we'll see him more and more at each position group, and seeing him really start to give tips to everybody and really get in there. So I think that's the main thing I think we'll see differently. Otherwise, I think we'll still see the message. I wonder what the message is going to be this year. And everybody, we still talk about the roots thing and the flower and everything else. I wonder what the overall message is going to be that he conveys and say, hey, you know what, because his team has a lot of expectations on him, a lot of eyes on him, and a lot expected of him. So I want to see what he does in that aspect too. But I think overall it's going to be more CEO type guy.
Well, let's end it there then, Chris, with those expectations. At C. Franklin News, read them at NJ.com. Also, LehighValley.com. Is it LehighValley.com? That's going to be big for Kaiser White this time.
Yeah, I'm taking the Nick Fierro. I'm going to pass the baton and take over that the Lehigh Valley belt, and look forward to hopefully those guys out. But I think overall, it's good to be up there. I got to see the Iron Pig Stadium once when Devonta Smith softball game.
Celebrity softball game. Yeah,
good area.
Devonta Smith. No Richard Rogers at the celebrity softball game, I believe. He's a ringer. I'm surprised Richard didn't show up. But those expectations, they can go in a positive direction. They can go in a negative direction. How do you think this team handles it, specifically when you talk about the head coach you were just talking about? It's different. Nobody expected. Nobody knew Nick Sirianni. They kind of downplayed him after the opening press conference. Now everybody's like, well, this is a good team. This is a good team. How does that change the coaching philosophy, how he's got to handle things? Is it easier, more difficult? The floor is yours.
I think it's more difficult when you have a team that everybody says, like, hey, it's going to be good, because it's tough when everybody says you're bad, you're bad. You usually use that as a rallying point, crying and go, hey, you know what? You go us against the world. They think we can't do anything. Let's show them that we can. And I think we saw that happened last year. When everybody tells you, oh, you're good, or you're going to win a division and everything else, it's tough to try to downplay that, because you don't want to try to be too negative and think you guys, oh, you don't believe in us. But at the same time, you don't want to think, like, okay, you know what? You don't want them to be overconfident and then say week 1 against Detroit, they get boat race, and then everybody going, well, what happened? We thought you're good, and then everything spirals down for that. So I think for Sirianni, messaging-wise, we're going to take it one day at a time, one practice at a time, one day at a time. But overall, arching, he's got to. It's one of the things you hate to say, but you got to truly believe that cliche, because if they start to look too far ahead and start thinking, oh, well, by week 13 we should be this and should be a 3-4 seed, something like that, they're going to find themselves in trouble.
All right, I'm since I asked this to BLG when we had him on earlier, I guess this is going to become a standard question for me with all you guys before the season gets underway, who are going to be there and be on the grass and cover the Eagles' every movement. How many touchdowns the Eagles going to beat the Lions by week 1? Mr. Franklin, you want to give us a guesstimation on that?
I think they win by 10 points. I guess a total touchdown, field goal. I think it's going to be a lot closer than anybody thinks.
Yeah, so do I.
Oh, not everybody. BLG has the friggin' Eagles losing the opener to the Lions.
I was about to say, BLG's got them losing.
Wow.
I got them winning on a Jake Elliott 48-yard field goal late. I think they win by a field goal.
I think it goes close into the fourth quarter, because they might try Detroit might try some things, and they had all summer to plan for this game. Yeah. I think it goes late into the fourth quarter. Then the Eagles just run the ball. They get the late touchdown, and then Jared Goff becomes Jared Goff. Throws a pick, and then it's done.
Exactly. Jared Goff does something stupid late. That's how you win the game.
Chris, if you watch the show when you're not on it, I always end it with 2-2, meaning we'll be
Chuck
back
Woolery.
22 hours, much like Chuck Wooler. Yes, Eagles are going to win by 2-2. 2 touchdowns.
Wow.
We'll throw in another 2 field goals as well. So
this is what I'm talking about, the expectations, Chris.
Chalk up about a 20-point victory over the Lions this year. What they beat them last year, by the way?
40
something. 41 nothing. What was it? I don't even know.
It's a lot of blue seats, man, in the fourth quarter.
The Lions did get one score, but the Eagles were in the 40s. Yes, and I expect this to be somewhat similar this year. All right, CF, always a pleasure, buddy. We're going to punch up often once the season gets rolling. Feel free to smack McMullen upside the head when you see him tomorrow.
Love Fest tomorrow will be the only day I think everybody will be nice with each other. But other than that, just kidding. But it was fun. Thank you guys so much.